thank you everyone. Look, we won't keep you too long. Firstly, Jock, congratulations on your exhibition. You've got some beautiful body of work there. Not only is the work beautiful, but a bit of insight into the process as well as to how Jock puts that work together. So if you've got some time, have a chat with Jock. Beautiful, very interesting background as to the actual process itself, not only the actual work. So a couple of quick thank yous to Todd and Liz upstairs in the office. Couldn't have done this without them, so many thanks to Liz wherever you are. Todd can't be here. Ah, there she is. And also a very big thank you to Todd. Obviously couldn't happen without you. We're just going to have a couple of quick speakers. We've got someone who we've got very fortunate to have a few words. Followed that up with a thank you from Jackie and also Lorne. We'll finish off with a very quick poem. We're very lucky today to have Jock's body of work from the ground floor and Jackie and Lorne with their message from upstairs, from Classic here and up. Talking about the Syrian refugee crisis, a really important message. We were quite privileged to have a gentleman called Phil Glendenning from the Evan Rice Centre do some fantastic work for asylum seekers. He was travelling, came back today and fell very ill, so unfortunately couldn't make it. So, as a coincidence, we have in the crowd Paul Powell. So some of you may remember Paul. Paul was the guest speaker at the opening of the exhibition in 2013, which Jackie and Chidsey, he is, can't see him at the moment, there he is. They had their exhibition at the McGlade Gallery, ACU in Strathfield. So Paul was very kind to say a few opening words then. Paul is in the crowd at the moment and he has kindly offered to say a few words. So we are very grateful to have Paul say a few words. Paul is the CEO of Refugee Council Australia. So we're very grateful to have his time. So Paul, don't mind, so please welcome Paul.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for the invitation, Jackie and Lorne, to say a few words at the opening. Yeah, I think in the exhibition, through art and through poetry, really encourages us to think about one of the most important themes internationally at the moment, which is the theme of dispossession. And I think if you, it's a theme which applies everywhere. In fact, it even applies on this land here, because we're on the traditional country of the Aboriginal and the Gadigal people who themselves were dispossessed 230 years ago, or over a period of time from 230 years ago. And of course also it's interesting that the focus of this exhibition is on people who are fleeing Syria, and of course over the past 2 or 3 years we've had several thousand refugees from Syria settled in our own city here as part of the process of building a new life for the small percentage of people from the Syrian conflict who are able to get permanent resettlement in another country. If you look at the situation at the moment for Syrian people, over the past just over 5 years since the civil war started dispossessing large numbers of people, more than 6 million, or close to 6 million Syrians have actually have fled as refugees. 5 million of them remain in the countries immediately surrounding Syria, and about 950,000 have moved on to Europe to seek asylum. There's also 6.5 million Syrians living inside the borders of Syria as internally displaced people. So this country has the majority of its population either displaced outside of its borders or within its own borders. And it's a terrible tragedy for a country which only 8 or 9 years ago was actually the largest host of refugees of any country in the Middle East. It was actually a country with a long record of generosity to refugees fleeing from other countries. 18 months ago I had the opportunity to make a brief visit to Lebanon to look at the situation there. And if you haven't been to Lebanon, you're probably not aware of how small the country is. You could actually, if you put it in New South Wales, you could fit it between the centre of Newcastle and the centre of Wollongong, and between Bondi and Penrith, the whole country in such a small area. The resident population of Lebanon is just on 5 million, which is about the same population as the Greater Sydney area. But over the past 5 or 6 years, they've had 1 million people from outside come across the border from Syria into their country. And you can imagine Lebanon is under enormous pressure. And while many people in Australia think, well, there must be organised refugee camps and a whole international humanitarian system swinging into place, well, that's unfortunately not the case. I mean, there is certainly international humanitarian support, nowhere near the level that's required, but there are actually no formal refugee camps, and people are surviving in any way they can, crowded into apartments, often 3 or 4 families, 3 or 4 bedroom apartment, or for the poorest, renting tents on vacant blocks of land. And these are sometimes called refugee camps, but they're far from the sort of camps that people would imagine. And of course, what's happening is that people can't live indefinitely in those living conditions, and also they cannot survive financially. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, has been tracking the situation of Syrian refugees in Lebanon over the last few years, and each year they're able to document the fact that the 1 million Syrian refugees in the country are in deeper and deeper debt, and that for most of the 1 million Syrians in Lebanon, their debt now is completely unsustainable. So under those circumstances, people are not only finding living conditions difficult, they cannot survive financially. There is no means of support. It's natural that some people in that situation who can find the means choose to move on. Or they may, in many cases, even send young adults in their family further afield to places where they may be able to find a lifeline for the rest of the family. And this is really at the heart of this movement of people across the seas. There's a lot of discussion in Australia about how dangerous sea journeys are, and they're definitely dangerous. But also the main political parties here say that these journeys must be stopped at all costs, even at the cost of imprisoning people for 4 years in Nauru and Manus Island. But unfortunately, there's no discussion about the causes of this people movement, about the unsustainability for the country of Lebanon, for the refugees in Lebanon, for the people of Lebanon, and for other countries. And the fact that people who come from a country for which there is no clear resolution available in the foreseeable future and no life where they're currently living are desperate to find any alternative. And this is at the heart of the movement of more than 1 million refugees from Syria and other countries into Europe over the last several years. And of course the loss of life is significant. This year around 100,000 people so far have moved into Europe across the Mediterranean Sea from the Middle East and Africa, and around 2,350 people that we know of are documented to have died. But I think at the heart of it, at the heart of this exhibition, the arts that Jackie has produced and the poetry that Lorne has produced, is really not only an attempt to encourage us to connect, with the heart, with this human situation, but also just to ponder what we as individuals, what we as an Australian nation, and also what the global community, how the global community responds to this tragedy, which has been unfolding before us. And of course, the Syrian refugee situation is well known internationally, but there are 6 million Syrian refugees, but another 16.5 million refugees in other countries around the world, and many of them in various parts of Africa where the situation is unknown. So I think, what I do is encourage you not only, to be inspired and encouraged and provoked by the art, but also to think about, well, what is our human response to this situation? How do we as individuals and as a nation push for more sustainable futures for people? I've actually just spent the last 3 or 4 of the last 5 or 6 weeks in Europe and Canada, and many, many times I've been asked, what is the situation in Australia? How do ordinary Australians support the policy of detaining people long-term in Nauru and Manus Island? Where are the humanitarian voices in the country? And I must say, I don't always know how to answer that question, but I think that's the challenge for us. How do we, from our comfortable position on the far side of the globe to this situation unfolding in the Middle East and Europe, how do we respond? But also, how can our community and our nation actually be a more constructive player in response to a very significant global crisis? So thank you, Jackie and Lorne, for your provocative art. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to me.
Good evening, thank you all for being here. I feel so privileged to have all of you wonderful people and many of you that I know very well, and you are all very special to Lorne and I, because you've made a trip in on the night when you could be watching the football to enjoy our exhibition. We didn't realise it would be the same date way back when a year ago. Wasn't really a good choice of evening, but Paul touched upon exactly how I would have liked it said when he spoke about the fact that we're very comfortable, we're very privileged, and we're very distant from it all. So that was something Lorne and I spoke about a lot, and our conversations were very much about how can we respond to something that we're not connected with outside of the media, and do we really have a right to do this, and those sorts of conversations. So what we aimed to achieve through our art and poetry is an open-ended presentation of ideas, and it's that simple. So hoping that you can gain something from it and to think about it and to have an awareness-raising experience around it. And we get this stuff from the media all the time, but we were hoping that maybe we could evoke feeling, emotion, drive or attitude, where we could all, as Paul said, ask ourselves how we might react to the situation and what can we do for it. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to thank Liz and the Waverley Gallery for allowing us to exhibit here. I'd like to thank Paul. Thank you very much. I was so excited to hear you were coming, and then it worked out really well for us because we got to have you speak. Thank you so much. And my husband and Dom, the family, for supporting, and then Lorne, of course, because when you collaborate with an artist, it's exactly what you need to keep you on your toes. You can't get comfortable, and Lorne doesn't make it a comfortable experience. He's filled with so many demands, and as my husband says, I can't believe that Lorne gets a yes out of you every time, because I say no to Jeremy often about these sorts of things, and I'm up here talking because Lorne's made me do it. So thank you very much for coming.
Sorry, Jeremy. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. I won't rattle on. It's late, and I'm thoroughly aware of that. I'm really impressed that so many of you have turned up today. It means a great deal to myself and to Jackie. I was very, very lucky to have Jackie ask me to get involved with this about a year ago. I'm disturbing the people reading their physics textbooks upstairs. It was really, really hard to write these poems, really, really difficult. You know, I'm a privileged white guy who lives in the Southern Highlands. I don't have many problems in my life. And so Jackie touched on that idea of, well, who are we to write? Paul, thank you so much for your words. Where are you? Paul, thank you. It was beautifully sincere and what we needed tonight. Thank you so much. And I liked how you've talked about needing those voices that are speaking out of it. I hope Jackie and I are taking that step in that direction. So, Jackie, thank you so much for inviting me in. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you for the last year. We've had a lot of laughs in this journey as well. It wasn't a really serious, intense experience with a box of tissues. It was actually a very light-hearted experience writing and working with Jackie at times too, which is lovely. I'm going to finish with a poem from upstairs. Upstairs? Where all the art comes from. I hope you sort of like this. It's hard to like these poems, really. You don't come away going, oh, lovely. So anyway, but thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and thank you to Waverley Library for having us as well. Crossings. Howling moon, vomiting teenager, tracing fresh wrist scars. How I miss your smiles. Dislocation, untrue north, no sense of direction. Zero chance of detection. The smoke of dying. Engines moaning. Tankers petrol fume. Eyes pitch dark, smugglers with handguns, crying fathers, nauseous children, praying mothers. The money they paid for a glimpse of something paradisiacal. How I miss your fingertips, hoping for a rising sunfish, then flying fishes without wings. Medusa's dark lullabies, Sharon's sweet sigh, visions of piled severed heads and ditches. How long big men take to bleed out. How I miss your kiss. This sterile Aegean, Poseidon falling on his trident, a fisherman's faint light winking. Oh, city of jasmine, oh, motherland, what happened to you?
Thank you all. Yep, so please enjoy the work and yeah, enjoy wine.